Hey everybody, welcome back. My name is Elise and this is 10 to Life, if you couldn't tell by the sign over my left shoulder here. And we talk all things true crime over here. So if you're brand new, welcome. I hope you enjoy today's case coverage. And before we get into it, guys, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, copy the link, send it to a friend. Do your thing, support the channel. It helps that channel, it helps the algorithm, do all the things. And for everybody who is a returning 10 to Lifer, welcome back. Thank you for your constant support. I just love you guys so much. Today we have an update in a case that is super popular out there that everybody is just so invested in. And that's the case of the Delphi murders, also known as the Snapchat murders. And this is the case where two young girls, Abby and Libby, were brutally murdered back in February 2017 in Delphi, Indiana. Now, to this day, nobody has formally been charged yet in the murders of these two young girls, which has just outraged the public. And if you haven't seen my first video about this case, go on back, take a look at that video, and give it a listen because it will give you a full background on this case, so many details about current suspects, new information, and it'll really just give you a comprehensive overview of everything in a more detailed way. So over the past couple of weeks, more information has come out regarding this case, and we're going to talk about all of it. So guys, let's get right into it.
10 to Life with Elise starts right now.
All right, guys, we are pausing very quickly in today's case to have a word from today's sponsor, Magellan TV. Now, I know most of you have heard me talk about Magellan TV before, but for those of you who have not heard me talk about them, I am about to blow your mind, so let me break it down for you. Magellan TV is a new kind of documentary streaming service. They have over 3,000 documentaries available to stream, and they're adding new content every single week, between 15 to 20 hours of new releases. So you will never fall short of having something to binge. And the best part is they are offering documentaries through all different types of genres, not only true crime, which that's what I love, so I'm always finding myself poking around in the true crime section, but they cover everything. So they truly do offer something for everyone. Literally, I already have it saved in my queue for tonight. I'm going to be watching Secret in the Bones, The Hunt for the Black Death Killer. It just looks so fascinating. I can't wait to watch it. And literally, I just want to jump off this case so I can go watch it right now. And the best part of Magellan is that all of the content is crystal clear. And you can stream it from anywhere, on any device. Your phone, your computer, your tablet, it doesn't matter. They make it so easy for you that you can literally watch from anywhere. And because Magellan is such an amazing partner of the 10 to Life channel, they are offering all of you 10 to Lifers a free month-long trial. Let me say that again, guys, a free month-long trial. All you have to do is click that link in the description box below. Guys, you're going to be obsessed with it. So many of you have already slid into my DMs telling me how much you love Magellan. So if you haven't tried it yet, now's the time. Use that link, go try it out, get your free month. You are going to have so much content to binge. Thank me later. And thank you, Magellan TV, for being such an amazing sponsor of the 10 to Life channel. And thank you, of course, to all of you viewers for understanding that sponsors are essential to the channel if we want to grow it to a place where I can deliver you more true crime all the time. Now let's jump back into today's case. Previously, we did a deep dive on Keegan and Tony Klein. And again, if you remember this case, you'll remember that Keegan was communicating with Libby German under the account of Anthony Schatz. And they had plans to meet up the day that the two girls were murdered, and things were just not looking good for Keegan. Now, Keegan is currently in jail for having obscene material that was found on his devices, and there were numerous things that were just not adding up and pointed directly at him or his dad Tony possibly being involved in these murders. However, now there is another person to add into this case who may have been involved this entire time. None of their stories or behavior adds up, and it really does make me wonder who really was involved and if we're ever going to get the full story. Libby's grandma recently did an interview describing her thoughts on the Anthony Shots stuff and how they had no idea that their affidavit landed in the hands of a news station who has now released it to the public. This affidavit is from March 17, 2017. This affidavit for a search warrant came after another search warrant was executed on a man named Ron Logan's property back on March 6, 2017. The March 6th search had nothing to do with the murders of Abby or Libby, but instead had everything to do with a probation violation, which included Ron driving while he was prohibited from doing so because he had previously been arrested back in 2014 for drunk driving. However, the March 17th affidavit that was released recently by this news company, or news station, I should say, was for probable cause in the case of the Delphi murders. Now, who is Ron Logan, and what does this have to do with this case at all? Well, the girls, Abby and Libby, were found on the property of Ron Logan. Ron was 77 years old at the time of the girls' murder, and he actually did an interview the day after the girls were found.
The crime scene Thursday, a place property owner Ron Logan knows well, but never thought he would know for something so tragic.
I can't really wrap my emotions around it yet. It's so mind-boggling. I haven't really caught up. It hasn't caught up with me yet.
Up and down the hills, across that bank now circled with crime tape, his son grew up playing here.
Never in your wildest dreams do you think that he comes down here to play, he won't come back home.
He and his friends grieved for the victims, Liberty German and Abigail Williams, both 13.
That's why we come back. He goes, I want to show you what it looks like. You couldn't carry someone up and down these hills, or it's hard to walk by yourself. This place is never going to be the same. It'll never be the same, will it? Yeah. I mean, everybody will be, they'll be very vigilant now from here on out when they come down here.
FBI agent Nicole Robertson, who was working this case, wrote this affidavit in order to get a search warrant approved from a judge. She started off the affidavit by going over the quick background of this case. She also wrote that the girls were killed by a weapon and that due to the amount of blood, it would be impossible for the murderer to not have blood on themselves or on their clothes, and that the location that the girls were found in was approximately 1,400 feet from Ron's house on his property. Also, that the bodies were moved and staged, which I just have to say is a pretty bold move for a killer to do on somebody else's property. If you're going to take the time to move two bodies, then stage them, would you really be so reckless as to take that time doing it on somebody else's property, knowing that you could be caught at any minute? Unless, of course, it was your own property and you knew that there was no chance of the owner catching you. She also wrote in this affidavit that Ron's voice was not inconsistent with the voice in the video taken on Libby's phone saying, "Guys down the hill." Down the hill. Down the hill. Which now you know this video and this audio has gone viral. It is just crucial to this case, and it is like the one piece of key information that anybody has to go on to figure out who committed this crime against these two young girls. Nicole then wrote about a missing article of clothing from one of the girls, and her stance in that was that in her experience, she often notices that a suspect usually takes something from the scene as some sort of trophy or symbol of remembrance. And if they don't do that, they often will just take photos of some sort to keep the memory, which is just insane to me because it's like if you have photos of the crime, you are just taking such a risk of being caught down the road, but it's very, very common. So could that also be why the girls' bodies were staged? That in addition to taking a trophy and a piece of their clothing, the murderer also took photos of their staged bodies? Nicole then discussed the alibi discrepancies. On February 14th, the day that the girls were found, Ron called his cousin and asked him to tell the police that he had picked up Ron around 2 to 2:30 in the afternoon on the 13th, which was the day of the murders, more specifically, the afternoon of the murders. And he asked his cousin to say that he had picked him up to take him to an aquarium store in Lafayette, and that then they returned to the house around 5 or 5:30 that night. Now, what was Ron doing that he needed his cousin to lie for him and provide him with an alibi? During the March 6th search, a receipt was in fact found for that trip to the aquarium store, but the checkout time was 5:21 p.m. Now, given that Lafayette was only 30 minutes away from Delphi, Ron could not have been home by 5:30, as he and his cousin were saying. But if the receipt shows 5:21, that sure does sound like time to commit the murders, stage the bodies, clean yourself up, and then head to the aquarium store around, say, 4:30 p.m., 30 minutes later, arriving at 5 p.m., and then checking out and returning home. And that timestamp is actually giving a very generous cushion of time, because he could have left his house as late as 4:45 p.m. that day and still checked out at 5:21 p.m. So I would really like to know what time exactly Ron had called his cousin on the 14th to make that request. On March 7th, Ron's cousin was interviewed and told law enforcement what Ron told him to say. But then just 2 days later, on March 9th, when he was interviewed again, he admitted that he had lied for Ron and also knew that Ron had been driving while legally prohibited from doing so. Now, he had asked his cousin to lie for him before the girls were even found. Now, why would he need an alibi so early on if the girls hadn't even been found yet? Was he trying to safeguard his story should law enforcement look in his direction? Ron also had driven illegally to the transfer station to drop off trash the morning that Abby and Libby went missing. But he didn't ask his cousin to be an alibi for that. So perhaps the alibi wasn't to cover up for him driving illegally, but perhaps was to cover up for a particular window of time. Because if it was just for the sake of covering up that he was driving illegally, wouldn't he have asked his cousin to also give him an alibi for that drive too? And Ron did an interview discussing his alibi.
Logan has been the focus of attention from day one. Inside Edition Stephen Fabian interviewed him in 2017.
You just cannot believe this terrible thing that happened to the community and the families actually happened here on my property in my backyard.
He claimed he had an alibi, buying tropical fish 20 miles away.
I was not home during the time that all this was happening. I was in Lafayette, and I didn't get home till approximately 6:30 in the evening, and then the neighbors stopped to ask for permission to look back here for the girls.
Liberty German shot this chilling image of the killer approaching the girls on a hiking trail, and she recorded the killer's voice.
What do you hear on there?
Nothing that I recognize at all. No one. I don't recognize the voice at all.
Stephen asked Ron Logan to repeat those same chilling words. Listen.
Down the hill. Down the hill. Down the hill. The picture is of such poor quality, it doesn't look like anyone I've ever seen.
Notice he said 6:30 that he came home, but he had told his cousin to say between 5 and 5:30. Now, was this a Freudian slip? Possibly. Also, do you think that the voices sound similar to the clip from the hill? Does Ron in this interview sound like the voice of the bridge guy saying down the hill? What's even more shocking in this is the cousin also told law enforcement that the bridge guy looked like Ron. And that's not even the craziest part. We are going to get into even more craziness here. On March 8th, 2017, law enforcement interviewed an ex-girlfriend of Ron's. The two of them hadn't spoken in 2 years prior to this interview that law enforcement had with her. And this woman had actually told law enforcement in this interview that she had left Ron because he became physically abusive. She alleged that he had actually gone so far as to drag her out of the car by her hair. She said that once she left Ron, he stalked her and he harassed her. And she also said that he always carried a gun in a fanny pack, no matter where he went. Now, the actual weapon used on the two girls has not been disclosed. But if it was Ron all along, could the girls have died by gunshot wounds? And I have another question. Could that be a fanny pack that he is wearing on the bridge? Remember how Ron's cousin said that he thought he looked like this bridge guy? Well, the ex-girlfriend said that when she first saw the photo, she thought that that was him too. And at that time, she didn't even know that this bridge guy was a suspect. But when she saw the photograph, she immediately thought that that person was Ron. A lot of red flags are going up here, guys. On March 14th, 2017, law enforcement interviewed somebody else. They interviewed a former housemate of Ron's who apparently participated in an intimate relationship with him. She had lived with him from September of 2016 to December of 2016, so just a few months. But apparently she had engaged in intimate relations on and off for 3 years. She immediately said that when she heard about Abby and Libby, she immediately thought Ron had something to do with it, alleging that Ron had been violent with her too in the past multiple times, even punching her in the face for disrespecting him in his house. And that is her quote. This woman also said that she had told her baby's father that if she was killed, Ron did it. So the cards are beginning to stack up against Ron. Not only exes, but his own family members are identifying him as being capable of these crimes and also looking like the man in the photo on the bridge that day. When law enforcement searched Ron's phone, they found that at 2:09 p.m., just 2 minutes after Libby posted the photo of Abby walking, Ron's phone made a call. They could not confirm his exact location, but the phone appeared to be in or around his property and around High Bridge, where the girls went missing.
The real video of the suspected killer walking toward Libby and Abby, transformed by three-dimensional augmented reality technology, gives a lifelike look to the nearly 4-year-old crime. Libby's older sister, Kelsey, calls it intense.
It was like you're standing on the bridge with them as they're seeing this.
There's the suspect approaching the girls. Libby's phone is out, taking the video, with her best friend Abby at her side.
It brought it really into perspective for me of what they were seeing, and just the person being there gave me a new perspective of what he looked like.
The original video, sketches of the suspect, a $225,000 reward, and more than 50,000 tips haven't led police to the girl's killer. The families hope this video will.
It's going to help trigger somebody's memory, and they're going to say, wow, I really do know who this looks like.
He then sent a text at 7:56 p.m. the night of the murder. The analysis of the phone showed that he was likely outside of his actual house and in the area where the girls' bodies were found. He also received a text that night at 10:16 p.m. that same night of the murder, and yet again, the analysis of the phone showed that he was likely outside of his actual house and in the area where the girls were found on his property. Perhaps this is when he was moving the bodies or was finishing staging them? At the time of the affidavit, 15 tips had already been called into the police about Ron potentially being the suspect in this case. 15 tips for a somewhat nobody of a person. That is pretty alarming. The judge did sign the affidavit for that search warrant, but we don't know what the results were from that search. We do know that he was arrested on March 16th, the day before the affidavit was signed, on the probation violation for the allegations that he had violated his probation from the 2014 drunk driving case. They also charged him with being a habitual traffic violator for driving his truck to the landfill the morning of February 13th, 2017. He pled guilty and was sentenced to 2 years in prison, but was released in January of 2018 and finished his sentence with house arrest instead. So as everything is beginning to come to light about Ron, and there may finally be some justice for sweet Abby and Libby, a tragic turn of events happened. And in 2020, Ron died from COVID. So if Ron did in fact brutally murder these two girls, move their bodies, stage them, and take a trophy from his killings, he won't ever face punishment in the eyes of the law. A huge miscarriage of justice and massive disappointment. But on the other side of things, maybe Ron wasn't involved. Perhaps all of this is coincidence and reasonable doubt. Maybe Keegan Kline or his father Tony are still the ones who executed these heinous murders. Because remember, there was quite a bit of compelling evidence against them as well. If you have watched my last video, or if you've read through all of the Keegan and Tony Kline stuff, I'd love to hear your opinions on this. Do you think it was Keegan? Do you think it was Tony? Or do you now think that it was maybe Ron? Leave your comments below with your opinions, and I, of course, will continue to update you guys and let you know when new information comes out as soon as we learn more about what results were yielded in that search that they had conducted on Ron's property. I don't know why those results haven't been made public yet, especially because he's now deceased. So I'm going to do some digging on my end, and I'm going to let you guys know what I find. But I am curious to know your thoughts below. Who do you think is responsible? Do you think it's one of those three men, and why? Or do you think it's still somebody out there, somebody at random, or not necessarily at random, but somebody who maybe nobody has even looked at or uttered their name yet? Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Thanks again for tuning in with me today, guys. I hope you enjoyed the case coverage. Don't forget to do your thing, hit the subscribe button, the like button, share this link with somebody, throw it on your Facebook, throw it in a comment, throw it in a text message, and let me know what you guys think in the comments below. All right, guys, until the next case, stay safe.